Hola, hola, everybody. This is going to be an impromptu message. I don't have any notes on this. This just came into my mind, and I just wanted to document it and to put it out there into the ether. Okay. It's this idea about dark and light. Okay. Dark and light. And naturally, people think dark and they think evil, right? And they think light as being good. Um, And that is not true. Okay, when we talk about dark and light, we're talking literally about what is the unknown and what is the known. Okay, um, unknown and known. Okay, now in the darkness, you may not have known something. It may have been hidden to you because life. Part of life is having experience. Okay, and then hindsight, which reveals everything. Um, But yes, just because someone goes into the darkness or they go to the dark side doesn't mean that they are innately evil. Okay. On this channel, I often say evil is what you do, is anything that you do to those that are in a vulnerable state. Okay. That causes harm too. Okay. Or intentionally sorrow too. That is what I say is evil. Okay, those who are vulnerable or don't have knowledge, whatever act is acted upon them that is causing harm because of their vulnerability, I say that's evil. Okay, it's the opposite of moving out of love and understanding. Okay, um, and this has nothing to do with balance or justice or anything other than that. I'm saying that's how I define the word evil. All right. And again, we're getting away from good and bad stuff. Okay, light is usually just something that is now known. It's in the light, it's in the truth. You're moving in truth. Okay, so if you go into the darkness and you're unknown, the only way for you to get out of the darkness is if you to shine truth on it. Okay, do you see how those words are now played on? Okay, I think a lot of people watch Star Wars and they think, oh, you come over to the dark side, now you're evil and you want. That's not necessarily true. It just means that you're able to go into the unknown. In the unknown, there is truth there. You just don't know it yet. Okay, and then once you go in and you find the truth, no matter what the truth may be, right? Just because let's say a truth hurts your feelings, right? It impacts you negatively. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it hurts you, that it would impact you negatively. It doesn't really mean it's evil. It didn't mean it was intentionally trying to do something to you in a vulnerable state, anything like that. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that you're able to go into the shadow, go into the darkness, shine light on the truth. Okay. Now, for those of us, and I told you I pride this channel on the ability to walk in light and in dark. Okay. So, whatever shadows you see when I'm walking in the dark, and if you're feeling some entity of fear or whatever, it's because now we know the truth about you. We can see you in the dark. Okay. So you just got to be mindful of that. You just got to be mindful of that. And a lot of people like who take that as a life walk journey or they put that on themselves, they can't be friends with everybody because a lot of people move in elements of deception, whether it be they're lying to themselves or lying to others in order, especially to make some kind of currency or monetary value. And that's just the truth of the matter. Right. So being around certain people who dedicate their life in seeking truth in all things, it will irritate the crap out of their shadows. Okay? It would irritate their shadows and they would can't be around you because your shadow is literally dedicated on finding the truth, bringing the light to that energy of the shadow, to the unknown. Because we're not scared to go into it. We're not afraid to tangle with shadows. We don't have that fear gene. Okay. And so sometimes people get lured by into the darkness, right? Some energies I have embodied this in my lifetime. Okay. I have also experienced it in others. Some people just have they have darkness. Okay. Most likely they have some kind of Scorpio placements, all right, or Pluto placement somewhere. Okay. That's just an energy signature, and it looks very mysterious to people, and people are drawn to it. Like, oh, so mysterious, but it's really not that mystical, guys. Okay? It's really not. All right? It's just an energy signature. All right? And so yes, people like that can't really be around everybody who don't really who okay, so like I have this video on my page. You should go on my YouTube and look for it. It's titled Some prefer to be comforted by demons than to be humble before God. Okay? Because God is truth. All right? So there's those of us who are on different levels, right? Different levels. All right. And on a certain level, there's lies, there's deception, things that they literally would deceive themselves, right? And also try to escape from their realities with different temptations or escapism techniques. Okay. Um, which is really an illusion and lies to reality. You have to face your reality in order to transmute it, in order to transcend it. But if you are trying to stay inside of the frequency of deception, you will find any excuse to stay there. Any excuse to stay there. Okay? And then you'll have what is it called? What's that called? Confirmation bias. Shout out to you. Right? Confirmation bias, meaning that you will see things, the truth will be glaring you in your face, but then you will find any reason to count as a excuse for you continuing to do something. Oh, I just need to experience. Oh, I just this. Oh, I just don't want to mature. I don't want to grow up. Whatever the case may be. Or they're racist. Or that, again, you always externalize that power. Once you start externalizing that power, we all see what level you're on. This stuff is not just for play, guys. All right, we don't come on here to be like, oh, look, I am the chosen one. I know everything. Yo soy. Like we're not just out here like this. There's a means to the end, okay? And I told you, I swear, when you get to a certain point, you be like, damn, everything that you ever thought, it's just been you. Every person that you have seen outside of yourself embodying characteristics that you like, that you don't like, it's probably you on different frequencies embodied in someone else. Right? This is why we don't rise to condemn. When you really start getting thoroughly into stuff, you start realizing, man, that's messed up. Right? But we all enter the world on a certain frequency, and then we also leave the earth on a certain frequency. It's up to you during your life, during the space and time of your life, to determine what that is going to be. How is that? Where's the character arc? All right? Now, some of us been lucky enough to come into earth with just certain things that we've already transcended maybe in past lifetimes, right? I.e., lower level energies of like jealousy and envy, right? This lifetime, I worked on wrath. I worked on wrath this lifetime for sure. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We all enter for different things that we have to work through as we're going through. All right, and it's for you once you get to the I guess the conscious development, the maturity level, where you start realizing, oh, okay, this is what I came here and stuff. It does get really lonely because then you get around people and they're like, man, these people are just they're really out here just lying to themselves on a day-to-day basis. Okay. And then you get around and then you start doing your little shadow realm powers, and then they're like, oh, what the hell's going on up there? Right? It looks crazy because then you become like a mirror to whatever nonsense, and you hear things in the shadow. That's another thing I want to say. Just because something's in the shadow doesn't mean it doesn't deliver truth. Right? There's certain entities who live in the shadow. They cannot live in the light. Right? Or they refuse to come into the light for whatever reason. For whatever reason. Maybe whatever they've done in the unseen. Right? I mean, it's not public knowledge yet, or it hasn't been there hasn't been a moment of redemption yet. Because they don't feel comfortable coming into the light because they would bring too much guilt or bring too much sorrow because whatever they have done, they have they feel some type of way about for it to become to the truth. They haven't been ready to face their truth yet about whatever it is that they've done. Okay. That doesn't mean those entities don't know the different shadows, like inside the darkness. When you're in the darkness, there's just different shadows. Some of them tell the truth. They'll tell you straight up, like, this person doesn't mean you well. In the shadows, they're plotting this. In the shadows, they're plotting that. Okay, this is real stuff. Okay, and it's for you to see the truth in the shadow and don't get spiral out. Right, this is what they're using their shade to do. Right, transmute it. Transmute that negativity into positivity, because that's who we are. Okay, some people are dark doesn't mean that they're evil. Okay, they're just able to go into the shadows. All right, and some of them are really protected by bigger shadows. Like, you know what I mean? When I say bigger shadows, I mean they have holistic energy in the shadow. Okay, there's fragmented shadow people who are, like I said, operating in deception. They choose to be in the shadows because they want to lie to themselves. These are people who oftentimes struggle with addiction. They oftentimes struggle with jealousy, envy, lust. These are lower level frequency demons. Low, 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 low. They just have to be in the shadow. That's just who they are, right? Because when they come to the light, they start twitching. They're like, oh, how did I let myself fall so far from grace? How did I, like, it's crazy. So they could just live. They have to keep lying to themselves. They have to find excuses to keep partaking in certain things, certain drugs, certain alcoholism, certain addiction. They have to lie to themselves to continue to this. It's feeding that temptation. It's feeding that lower level demonic energies. Okay, and then there's those who operate in the shadow wholly. They're not fragmented spirits. Okay, they're not. They go into the darkness and they move with that light of protection because they know their level. They just know their level. Okay, and you can't demonize them. They're just in the shadows. Okay, and it's really none of your business, to be honest. None of it is. None of it. You just see them. You are just able to see them. All right, and some people don't like to be seen, hence why they're in the shadows. All right. So a lot of you who are truth seekers, people who are really armored with that, stay high vibrational. Okay. This way you could transcend between the both and not be too crazy, right? And making sure that your higher self is always leading you. Okay. This way you don't have to give way to the lower entities of fear. All right. It's because we're not going into the shadow to judge people. You're not going, you're not going in there to judge people, but there's definitely roaches there. Okay, and when your presence in a certain dark environment, shadowy environment, you're gonna see roaches. When you start really shining that light, the roaches start to scatter. Okay, so just be mindful of that, right? Yes, there's those who call themselves the demons, right? Whatever. When I channel, I hear them speaking, but it doesn't mean what they're saying is lies. It doesn't affect. It just doesn't affect. You just have to move accordingly. You listen, right? You remember every energy has a motive, especially if they're operating in the shadows. You remember that, okay? Um, but it doesn't really matter when you really are, like, anointed, right? Protected from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet. There's really nothing really that you can be, like, too shaken up about. Okay? Just call questions to the shadow and maintain your solidness in your walk. Okay? Be the real deal in the room. All right? So you don't get too cantankerous or have an ill heart about lower level nonsense, because they just doing their job, being who they got to be. All right. Anything else? Let me take a pause and make sure. Yeah. Okay. Because sometimes we have people who, let's say, for example, they have taken a life. Okay. If they've taken a life, right? Was it a justified death? I don't mean backed by man's law. I mean backed by nature, backed by divine law. You know what I'm saying? There's checks and balances, regardless if whatever entity that you're praising as far as, like, man-made laws. there's also universal law that must be met. Okay? So those people operate in the shadow doesn't mean that could necessarily mean that they're evil. It does not necessarily mean that they're evil. It just means that they have now experienced what it is to take a life. All right? And it's not, again, we don't rise to judge. We just gain the eyes to see, to have the knowledge so we know who we're moving with. Okay? And some people are scared to be seen. All right? Some people are scared to be seen because of judgment from external sources. Okay? But it's not for any of us to judge the other. Everyone's life has their own soul progression. Okay? That's why you don't get too caught up in people's things. They come, they ask you a question. You make sure you say a prayer that I pray for the best possible outcome for you and you and yours. Okay? I don't want to categorize my heart in the shadows. I don't want to wish ill in the shadows. That's not my desire. You know what I mean? So some, they desire to come into the light. They want to be seen by certain people because they want to be able to be redeemed. But some people carry the redeeming gene. But I'm telling you straight up, they cannot redeem you. Okay? They can only offer temporary relief from what you're carrying on your own. The only way that you can actually be redeemed is if you yourself decide to walk in truth. You and the people that you hold close that you actually trust. Okay? That is more valuable than anything else on this earth. Okay? You unite in truth. Okay? But please understand that nobody external from you can give you salvation. We can only give you words of empowerment through our love frequency in the ether. So that when the day comes, when the earth opens up to swallow you again, and then that's the true test. That's the true test. All right. When the worms and the maggots and the ants and everything is eating on your flesh, and they're like, oh, well, have this memory and all this. Okay. That is the true judgment. Okay. But as far as your spirit and your soul goes, that belongs to the Most High. All right. It belongs to the Akashic records of our divine consciousness of God that we all share. Okay. That we're all able to tap into. So please don't beat yourself up about any past transgression. Remember that your life is still given with a purpose. And it's not for us to judge you. And I don't need to see all of y'all. I will say that also. Okay, please. I know I'm going to say it because for the people in the back, because I know not just myself. There's, like I said, there's an energy of darkness that people be like, I want to confess my sins to her. And literally, I could be in an Uber and they'd be like, I just got to tell you this and this and that. Why you got to tell me that? Yeah, I don't need to know. Just take me to my place. I want to go. Okay. All right. Let's keep things light. All right. Let's keep it light. Okay. Because I personally don't want to, I don't want to think too much about any of y'all. I don't. Okay. And not only that, some of your shadows just be telling me, even without you opening your mouth, they be just like, you know this, right? You know this person, that they just be just saying stuff. And I'll be like, I don't want to look at you different. I don't want to hear this right now. God, mute it. Because you know I ain't want to judge you, but am I on the clock for this right now? Okay? Just a little jokey joke. But I just wanted you guys to just know that. Okay? For your records. Alright? The shadow is not evil. Okay? In the void is where you actually could find your true power. When you don't know what's about to happen. And still follow your higher self through any peaks and any valleys. That is really truly God. Alright? It's nothing external from you. We are all just messengers. Anyone can be a messenger at any given point, as long as you stay present and you're listening. Please, God. Okay? And don't get distracted. Because a lot of people come as messengers just simply to distract you from your ascension and your progression. All right? So please, just keep that in mind. All right? We walk in light, we can walk in the dark. You can walk in the light, you can walk in the dark. Now, just because you can walk in the dark don't mean you can walk in the light. All right? So work on walking in the light. Work on walking in your truth. Work on that. All right? Because there's nothing but redemption ahead. That's all I got. Stay secure, y'all.